Vicki Gardner was being interviewed on live TV Wednesday when a deranged gunman named Vester Flanagan opened fire. The reporter and cameraman with her were killed, but she survived and remembers everything. Here's what she told her husband.
She just dove to the ground, curled up in a ball, and he shot her while she was on the ground. And then she just laid there because she was, she heard the gun click, and then she didn't hear anything for a long time. She was afraid he was standing over her still.
Remarkably, Tim Gardner says his wife was able to get up and walk to the ambulance after being shot in the back. She had a kidney and part of her colon removed, but is going to be okay. The president and other Democrats have used the shooting as another example to push for gun control. Gardner's husband doesn't blame the gun. Here's what he told Fox News.
If he hadn't had a gun, he'd have had a knife or he'd had a machete. He was bound and determined to try to make a name for himself on live TV because he'd failed at it so many times. So no, I don't blame the gun. I blame the guy that was holding the gun.
And the father of Allison Parker addressed reporters today. He says he's going to fight to tighten gun laws, but insists the effort isn't going to take away the Second Amendment rights.
We're not trying to take people's guns away. All we want to do is keep crazy people from getting guns, and there's got to be a way to do it.
All right, we'll go to you, Katie, first. You wrote books on guns. Your thoughts on both of these gentlemen?
Well, the good news is that there are ways to prevent mentally ill people from getting guns. Virginia is one of those places where if someone is put into the mental health system and their information is then put into the FBI background check system, they are ineligible to buy a gun. Now, in this case, despite the mental health problems that this killer had, and the station did their job in saying you need to go to this mental health institution, you need to get some help. He did. He wasn't legally adjudicated with a mental health problem, so it wasn't on his record. There was nothing in his record that indicated he was ineligible to buy a firearm. He passed the background check that all of these people have been advocating for this week. He purchased a very basic 9mm Glock pistol standard capacity firearm. And so when you look at what's been said, specifically by politicians, Terry McAuliffe, Virginia governor, for example, he implied this week that Virginia just doesn't have background checks at all, and it's irresponsibly false. Not only do you have to pass a background check, you also have to provide 2 forms of identification.
They say here in New York that most guns in New York are coming from Virginia.
One final point. The National Shooting Sports Foundation has actually done significant work at encouraging states to put mental health records into the FBI background check system so that these kinds of people don't get their hands on guns.
Now, I got up early and I was watching Fox and Friends. I saw one Geraldo Rivera make a suggestion that I couldn't believe. You want to amend the Second Amendment?
You want to amend the 14th, if we're going to mess with the Constitution. Let's take the stupidest amendment that the Constitution has, which is the right to keep and bear arms as construed by courts and politicians to allow. And there have been
some of us would say it's the only one that allows for the other amendments to for the Constitution.
Okay, then explain this to me. How, after Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, 26 babies and teachers slaughtered by a deranged gunman, there have been 85,000 gun deaths in this country just since Sandy Hook. And we have 3 times the gun death rate of any civilized nation on earth, 3 times more than Turkey. I mean, what the hell? At some point, we have to recognize. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. Let's take off the table. You won't amend the 14th, and I won't amend the 2nd. But
first of all, I didn't even bring up the 14th, nor do I have an opinion on the 14th.
Can we get back to this?
Let me make my point. My son now is going to be a merchant mariner. He's had to have education and physical exams and mental exams.
What amendments to the Second Amendment do you want to do?
Why is it so easy to buy a gun in this country?
It's not easy, Geraldo.
Why don't you have mandatory training? Why don't you have drug tests when you buy guns? Right. Why is it so you can buy guns easier than you could buy a used car?
That's
a lot of changes. Can I do this? Let's listen to this. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark has an interesting challenge for President Obama, who wants more gun control like Geraldo in America.
Here's my challenge to the President of the United States. If you think this is so easy, forego your Secret Service protection for you, for the First Lady, and your children.
Good luck.
And see what it's like to have to fend for yourself. And then we'll sit down and have a conversation so you know what we here at ground level have to deal with on a daily basis in terms of self-defense. I am done asking people in my community to outsource their personal safety to the government.
Greg, this is something you've been saying for a long time. All
Yeah.
these gun rights.
That was
freaks.
reckless and irresponsible. I'm telling you right
Okay.
now,
Wait,
that man should be
Geraldo,
ashamed of himself.
Let somebody else talk.
The president of the
Let
United States
somebody
is going to
else talk.
forego his,
Please, Greg.
I mean, please.
call
Can
it
we,
Geraldo.
when we put that on the air as if this is a responsible law enforcement official?
He is
Elected by his people,
right,
by the way.
Greg, please. The
Okay.
floor is yours.
There's a lot of dishonesty going on coming specifically from Geraldo. When you look at the statistics, and you know this as well as Katie, say the Washington Post will say that they're averaging more than one mass shooting per day. What they do is the overwhelming statistics are gang shootings because they know that gang shootings will not get the headlines.
The overwhelming
So what they
statistics
say,
are suicides.
no,
not gang.
gang. So you're telling me there's not a lot of gang
There's more
shootings?
suicide than murder.
There are more gang shootings than mass shootings. And when you look at statistics, you find that there is actually no increase in mass shootings once you look at gang shootings. So you're being disingenuous. You're saying like all these things are happening all the time and we don't care about dead babies. Screw you. We do care about
Dead babies?
We
What
do
are you
care.
talking- you-
That's
you
what
bring
you
abortion
said.
now?
That's what you said.
This
You
is a
said-
cop
you said
who says the
babies
president,
die. You
a
said
cop who says
babies
the
die.
president should forego his Secret Service protection?
Yes, but you know,
after
that's
we've been traumatized with
Okay,
presidents being
okay.
assassinated?
You know
How
what the point
dare
he's
he?
making? The point he's
How
making is
dare he?
actually brilliant. The point is brilliant. What he's saying
Brilliant?
is, if you want to live by your beliefs, then you should be prepared to sincerely live by them.
President of
That
the United
means-
States.
That means when you go to Fox News every morning, Geraldo, you don't have armed security either.
All right, can we bring Danny in here for Terry McAuliffe, as Katie pointed out, was within minutes of the shooting saying, tying this to gun laws. Too early, too soon. What's the political fallout?
Well, I think that a lot of this is all unhelpful because it doesn't get to the root problem, which is that he was obviously a mentally ill person. He was not diagnosed. His family couldn't get him help, and then he snapped. And so that is actually the common denominator in a lot of the mass shootings or in the cold-blooded ones that we see. Terry McAuliffe, like, if somebody could show me a policy that says these specific changes on gun laws would prevent more mentally ill people from getting guns or whatever. If they could actually show me that, I could be persuaded. And I think that is persuadable. What is not helpful is when a governor comes out minutes before even knowing anything about the shooter and makes
He's not even
policy
he's not even
pronouncements.
caught yet.
That's true. No, yeah, before he was even caught. Because that's where he goes. It's actually, they think that it's easier to deal with the gun problem than it is to deal with the mental health problem. And guess what? Because of that type of fighting, no problems get solved.
And so we have Geraldo and I will go back and forth over this till the day we die. We know we will. You will be on one side, I'll be on the other. But there's one
As
little.
long as you don't shoot me.
Yes. And I won't say screw you anymore. But anyway, a lot of these employers adopt a policy to provide as little information as possible to future employers. That's another problem. The employers knew this guy was trouble, and they didn't tell anybody about it. That's a problem.
We need to wrap it up. Good debate. Always heated, but always good.